I was sitting on my back porch here in Charlotte the other morning, just watching the birds gather around the feeder Gloria put out. It's a peaceful time of day, usually, but I noticed my neighbor from 2 doors down, a man about my age named Arthur, trying to get his morning walk in. Arthur used to be a brisk walker, the kind of guy who'd give you a firm wave and keep his pace without breaking a sweat. But lately, I've watched him slow down. He looks heavy in his boots, like he's wading through waist-deep water just to get to the end of the block. He stopped by my driveway to catch his breath, and he looked at me with a sort of tired frustration. He told me his doctor said his blood pressure numbers were looking perfect on his new medication, but he felt like he was running on half a tank of gas. He said, "William, I've got the numbers I want, but I've lost the life I had." That conversation stayed with me all day, because it reminded me of exactly how we used to handle the fleet at the transit depot. We had these governors on the bus engines, devices designed to keep the speed from going over a certain limit. On paper, it was a safety feature. It kept the numbers exactly where the city wanted them. But if that governor was set too tight, a bus couldn't climb a simple hill. The engine would strain, the schedule would fall behind, and eventually, the whole system would start to overheat because it couldn't perform the basic tasks it was built for. I've realized that a lot of us over 60 are being treated exactly like those buses. We're being given a governor for our hearts that brings the pressure down, but at a cost that nobody is telling us about until it's almost too late. In our talk today, I want to pull back the curtain on 3 things that your doctor might not have the time to explain in those short 15-minute appointments. First, I'm going to tell you about the specific old gold standard pill that might be lowering your pressure while silently raising your risk of a stroke or diabetes. Second, I'm going to explain why that exhaustion and weight gain you're feeling isn't just getting older, but a direct result of how your heart is being forced to beat. And third, I'm going to give you the exact questions I had to ask to make sure my own treatment plan was built on the latest evidence, not just on 50-year-old habits. This isn't about being against medicine. It's about being a responsible supervisor of your own health. I spent 3 decades making sure the transit system ran on time, and I learned that just because a gauge says green doesn't mean the engine is healthy. For a long time, I took a little pill every morning because a doctor told me it was the best thing for my hypertension. I trusted the system. I assumed that if it was being prescribed to millions of people, it must be the best option available. But as I started seeing my own energy levels dip and my blood sugar start to creep into that pre-diabetic gray zone, I started asking questions. My daughter Danielle, who works as a nutritionist assistant, started bringing me these reports from the latest medical trials, and what I found out shook my confidence in the standard routine. The paradox of the modern heart patient is that you can have a reading of 128 over 78 and still be quietly accumulating harm. Most of us are on a class of drugs called beta blockers. You might know them as metoprolol or atenolol. They've been around since I was a young man starting out at the depot in the 70s. For decades, they were the locks on the heart's door. They sit there and block the adrenaline, the body's natural key, from telling the heart to beat faster or harder. It brings the pressure down, sure, but it does it by forcing your heart to move at a slower, more sluggish pace than it was designed for. Think about that for a second. If you're 65 or 70, and you want to walk the neighborhood or play with your grandkids, your body needs a bit of that adrenaline. It needs the engine to rev up so you can climb the stairs or keep up with a toddler. But when you're on a beta blocker, you hit a ceiling. You try to push, but the medication says no. Your heart rate can't climb, your legs feel like they're made of lead, and you find yourself winded after a simple flight of stairs. Most of us just sigh and say, "Well, I'm just getting old." But control begins with what you stop normalizing. I realized that my exhaustion wasn't age, it was the governor on my heart. The real turning point for me was when Danielle showed me a study called the Ascot Trial. It was a massive piece of research involving nearly 20,000 people. They compared the old way, the beta blockers, against newer types of medication. The results were so clear that they actually had to stop the trial early. The people on the beta blockers were having more strokes, more heart attacks, and more cases of new diabetes than the people on the newer drugs. In places like the United Kingdom, they actually changed their entire guidelines because of this. They stopped recommending beta blockers as the first choice for simple high blood pressure. Yet here in the States, I see men my age every single day who are still on those same old pills because that's how we've always done it. I think about my friend Harold. He was 71, a man who prided himself on his evening walks with his wife. He'd been on a beta blocker for 3 years, and in that time, he'd gained 15 pounds around his middle and felt like he was running on an empty tank. His doctor told him it was just the natural progression of time. When we finally looked at the evidence and he had that conversation with his physician, they realized he was a candidate for a different type of medicine, one that didn't mess with his metabolism. Within a few months, Harold was back on the sidewalk. His energy had returned, and those extra pounds started to melt away. He wasn't getting older, he was just being over-medicated with the wrong tool. There's a metabolic cost to these pills that often goes ignored. They can increase your insulin resistance and mess with your cholesterol levels. For those of us already worried about our blood sugar, adding a medication that makes us 20% more likely to develop type 2 diabetes is a risk we shouldn't be taking if there are better options on the table. A life stable builds a body more stable, and you can't have stability if your medication is throwing your blood sugar and your energy levels into a tailspin. And we have to talk about the danger of falling. At 72, a fall isn't just a bruise, it's a life-altering event. These medications can cause what they call orthostatic hypotension. That's just a fancy way of saying your pressure drops too fast when you stand up. You get that dizzy feeling, that tontura, that makes you reach for the nearest chair. If you're taking a pill that makes you dizzy, while also limiting how much exercise you can do, you're essentially being set up for a fracture. I've seen too many good men lose their independence because of a hip fracture that started with a medication-induced dizzy spell. Now I want to be very clear about something. This is a rule I live by, and it's one I need you to hear. You never, ever stop a beta blocker on your own. It's not like stopping a vitamin. If you stop those pills abruptly, your heart can go into a dangerous rebound. Your heart rate can spike, your pressure can shoot through the roof, and you could trigger the very emergency you're trying to avoid. Any change has to be a slow, supervised transition with your doctor. I'm not here to tell you to open your medicine cabinet and start throwing things away. I'm here to give you the information so you can walk into that doctor's office as an informed supervisor of your own health. I had to have that conversation myself. I sat down and I asked my doctor point blank, is this medication the current gold standard for someone my age with my history, or is there a newer option that won't leave me feeling so exhausted? We looked at my fasting insulin, we looked at my triglyceride levels, and we realized that my treatment plan hadn't been updated in over a decade. The world of medicine had moved on, but my prescription was stuck in the past. There are better alternatives today for many of us. Things like calcium channel blockers or ARBs often do a better job of protecting the kidneys and preventing strokes without the metabolic baggage. I saw the difference in my own readings and in my own energy levels once we made the switch. My blood pressure stayed consistent, but the fog in my head cleared up. I felt like I could climb a hill again. I felt like the supervisor of the system, not just a passenger waiting for the next breakdown. I always tell Marcus, my son, that risk management isn't about avoiding all danger. It's about making sure you're using the right tools for the job. If you're using a heavy-duty industrial wrench to fix a delicate clock, you're going to break the clock. Many of our heart treatments are too heavy-duty for the job they're supposed to do in an aging body. We need precision. We need to look at our weight, our blood sugar, and our energy levels alongside that number on the cuff. I remember my cousin Silas. He was always one to follow orders without question. He took his pills, he ate his bland food, and he complained about being tired every single day until the day we lost him. He thought his exhaustion was just the price of survival. I wish I could go back and tell him that it didn't have to be that way. I wish I could have shown him the data that Danielle showed me. I carry that memory with me as a reminder that being a good patient doesn't mean being a silent one. If your medication is leaving you exhausted, if your weight is creeping up for no reason, and if your blood sugar is trending in the wrong direction, do not ignore it. Your body is sending you a signal that the maintenance plan needs a review. Pressure rarely rises alone, and it rarely stays down alone. It's all connected. The way you move, the way you process sugar, and the way your heart handles stress are all part of the same machine. I want you to take a look at your pill bottles today. Look for names like metoprolol, atenolol, or propranolol. If you see those names and you haven't had a thorough medication review in the last 2 or 3 years, it's time to make an appointment. Don't wait for your annual checkup. This is your life we're talking about. Prepare your questions. Ask about your metabolic health. Ask about the stroke risk comparisons. Be the supervisor that your body deserves. Gloria and I are planning a trip to the coast soon, and I've been making sure I can handle the walks on the sand. I couldn't have done that a few years ago when I was on the old regimen. I would have been sitting in a chair, watching everyone else move. But today, I'm in motion. I'm still learning, still adjusting, and still grateful for every bit of energy I've reclaimed. The heart pays attention to what we repeat every day. If we repeat a habit of blind trust in an outdated system, we get the results that system was designed to give 40 years ago. But if we repeat a habit of seeking the latest truth and advocating for our own well-being, we get a chance at a different kind of aging. We get a chance at a life that isn't just managed, but one that is truly lived. I'm going to head back inside now. Gloria has some tea ready, and I promised I'd help her with some things in the garden before the sun gets too high. It's a good day here in Charlotte, and I'm glad I have the energy to enjoy it. I want that for you too. I want you to wake up feeling like you have the fuel you need for the day ahead. Take care of your vessels, neighbor. They've been working hard for you for a long time, and they deserve a maintenance plan that actually works with them, not against them. I'll be right here, still watching the buses, still tending to my garden, and still making sure I'm the one in charge of my own engine. I'll see you out there on the path. Keep moving, keep questioning, and for heaven's sake, don't ignore the signs your body is giving you. You've got more control than they've led you to believe. I'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay informed, and keep moving forward. Before I go, just remember, your health isn't a destination you reach and then stop. It's a constant journey of adjustment. What worked for you at 50 might be the very thing holding you back at 72. Don't be afraid to revisit the plan. Your future self will thank you for the courage you show today. I'm heading out now. There's a lot of life left to live, and I don't intend to miss a second of it. Catch you later.